My name is Denny Hughes, and I born in Netherbury on the 5th of May 1940.
You're Dorset born and bred. Tell me a little bit about your mum and dad.
When I was very young, I didn't really know my dad because, of course, he was away in the war. He did get a couple. I do vaguely remember him coming home on a couple of leaves. And I have got some letters which he wrote to me when I was about 3 or 4, I guess, to keep in touch. My mum was always a hard worker, but she was very, very kind. And, they were good parents. They did their best for us all the time. We were happy children, really.
It's lovely that you mentioned that when your dad was at war that he wrote to you and you've still got those letters. And I know that you want to read a bit from one of the letters.
Yes, I'll do that. I've got one which he sent me. It must have been when he was be soon home, because it was written on Friday the 7th of December 1945. And it said, "My dear little Denny, how is my dear little baby today? I hope that you are quite well and happy. It seems a long time ago that I saw you and that we had a game together, but I expect that I shall be coming home to you soon. I'm longing to see you and have a talk to. I expect you will have a lot of things to tell me, and I want you to show me your pets. I haven't seen the white mice yet, and I'm looking forward to watch them playing in this cage. I'm wondering what you want Father Christmas to bring you this year. I expect you are all feeling excited now that it is near Christmas. Have a jolly time. I hope you will have a nice full stocking, and next year I will help you hang up your stocking on Christmas Eve. I'm looking forward to the day when I'll be able to meet you as you come out of school. It's going to be fun when we are all together once more. How do you like school? I hope that you like it all right, and that you will write and tell me all about it soon. When I come home soon, will you please sit next to me at the table when we have dinner and tea, because you are my little baby and I want to talk to you a lot. And can I read some bedtime stories when you go to bed? I like doing that. I'm looking forward to having some nice long rambles with you when I come back. Will you come nutting with me one day? Please give my love to Mum, Jill and Roger. I will write again soon. Lots of loves and kisses, Dad."
Oh, that's so lovely, Denny.
I'm nearly in tears.
What are your thoughts reading that out?
Well, it just shows you what a caring, loving man he was, really. And he didn't want to, now I look back, he obviously wanted to make sure, I knew he was in his life, sort of thing. Yeah, well, it's quite nice to still have it. And I'm so glad that my mother kept these things for us all. She kept all our bits and pieces. And it's so nice to look back and see, how caring he was.
He said he wanted to do lots of things with you, go netting, read you bedtime stories, go rambling.
Yeah.
Did you have that relationship with him when he came back?
Yeah, I think it did, as we all got older, obviously it did sort of get a bit, different. There wasn't quite that same closeness as there was when we were very small, because he was having to go out, cycle to Beminster every day to earn a living, and life kind of gets in the way a bit, doesn't it? But he was always there for us.
And I know that you had a really great relationship with your mum, and I know, again, one of your earliest memories of living in the cottage with your mum and no running water. Tell me a little bit about that with your older brother and sister and living with your mum in the cottage.
It was just a 2 up, 2 down, and we had no running water, and Mum used to have to walk down to the village pump, which was quite a little step down the road, to fill 2 buckets at a time to fill up the old copper in the little outhouse for the washing, and of course for our drinking water. And our toilet was down the end of the garden. And my brother and sister coloured in all the bricks on the toilet with chalks, I think it must have been. I guess it washed off, but for a time we had the most colourful toilet in Dorset, I think.
I know you had routine with your brother and sister and your mum, and what was Friday always?
Yeah, bath night. The old tin bath would be brought into the living room in front of we had an old black range type heater cooker, and then the water would be heated up in this old boiler out in the outhouse. And I was usually first in, which was quite nice.
I bet it was.
And when the water was all nice and clean and soapy, and then when I was taken out, then I guess my brother went in because he was the next youngest, and then my sister. I don't know what happened to Mum and her sister who lived with us. I don't know when they had their baths, but I think that was the routine, one after the other, all in the same water. And
it was just once a week, wasn't it, back then?
Oh, yes. We only had the one bath night.
Tell me about bonfire night, because I know that as a child in the village, it was quite a big event, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah, that was in my uncle's field at the farm, and a big bonfire would have been prepared. Some of the boys would help, and they'd get boxes from the local shop and empty boxes to put onto the bonfire, and we'd all make a forks, and then we'd all of us, well, most of the village children, would go along with a little paper bag with a few fireworks in, sort of a few squibs and sparklers and perhaps a rocket, and our fireworks were let off. Nobody ever seemed to get hurt, but and then the next morning, I can remember we used to go and look round the sort of perimeter of the bonfire to see if there were any fireworks that hadn't gone off, and we could pinch again. So that was quite fun.
So tell me about Lady North, Denny, because I know that she had a huge impact on your life, but also your friends' lives too.
Yeah, Lady North lived in the village. She was the wife of Admiral Sir Dudley North, and she was a wonderful lady. And she formed the Brownies, and we all went along to Brownies. And then as we got older, we moved up into the Guides, and she used to. She taught us to tie knots and do some semaphore. And then she would take us tracking, go out to some farmer's field and cut out a lump of turf and to make a fire and cook some, I don't know, sausages or scrambled eggs or something on the fire. So we'd learnt to cook. And she used to take us swimming. She had a friend in the village that had a swimming pool.
And not only did she start the Brownies and Guides, she also took you to London, and I know that was quite a big deal, wasn't it?
Yes, she did. Actually, it was 1951. It was the Festival of Britain year, and she took. I think there were 8 of us that went. We went on the train, and we stayed in her daughter's flat. Food was still rationed then, so I remember we had to take our little bit of tea and sugar. And she took us, we went to Buckingham Palace. We went to the Tower of London. I can remember seeing the Ravens and Trafalgar Square and St Paul's. I think we went up to the Whispering Tower, is it? And then we went to the Battersea Pleasure Gardens, where we went on the Big Dipper, which I didn't really enjoy very much, but the others seemed to. I don't really remember a terrific lot about it, apart from this ride on the Big Dipper.
In addition to trips and guides and brownies, I know Lady North also encouraged you in terms of the arts as well, didn't she?
Yeah, we used to do, nearly every year, we'd do something on the stage in the village hall. We'd do little plays. And then one year, I remember she adapted A Midsummer Night's Dream for us to act. I was Oberon. So we did it in the village hall. And then a little while afterwards, we did it in the grounds of Parnham House. Quite an honour to be able to go and act in the grounds of Parnham House.
And what do you remember about that production of Midsummer Night's Dream, Denny?
My friend was Titania, I can still recite, I know a bank whereupon the wild thyme blows, where ox slips and the nodding violet grow, quite over canopied with lush woodbine, with sweet musk rose and eglantine. There lies Titania sometime of the night, lulled in this something with fancies of delight. There the snake throws her enamelled skin wide enough to wrap a baby in. With the juice of these I'll streak her eye, so that when she wakes she'll be full of hateful fantasies. Something like that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, it was good to do. It was a lot to learn.
But looking back on all the things that she did for you and your friends, what are your thoughts about Lady North?
She was an incredible person. I think at the time we didn't realise, how much she gave us. But when you look back, you just realise how she enriched all our lives. I mean, we learnt so much through her, really.
There were two pubs, and one of the pubs was run by your grandfather and then your dad and mum.
Yeah.
First of all, just describe the pub to me and your earliest memories of the pub.
Yeah, well, it was a quite imposing looking building, right in the middle of the square. It looked quite posh actually, but there inside at that time we only had a pump for water in the sort of little outhouse. The pubs were quite different then, I think. Most evenings you'd have sort of few of the local working men and perhaps a few ladies who'd come in, and there'd always be a game of darts or table skittles or game of cards a kitty nap going on in the corner, and there'd be matches with other local pubs. Weekends were busier often, and sometimes Les Bagwell, who's still with us now and lives just outside of Netherbury, he'd come along with his piano accordion, and we'd have a good old sing-song, usually some of the old wartime songs. In the mornings in the pub it was fairly quiet. You'd have one or two sort of the retired men popping in to meet up with some others, which was, they did quite often. And you'd also get working men who were working in the village would come in with their lunch boxes and spend their lunch break there. I can remember this one old chap in the village was Jack Symes. He seemed to be homeless, but he used to come to the Jug and Bottle very often with a couple of eggs and say, could he cook these for I, please, missus? And of course, Mum was kind and she always cooked his eggs. But the sad thing was, I don't know if I did mention, we had this little orchard and Dad used to keep a few chickens there. And we eventually discovered that these eggs were coming from our chickens. Which was lovely, really. I expect she still went on cooking them.
Do you remember any other characters that used to go into the pub or were village characters?
Well, there was Laura Lacey, who was our fortune teller in the village. she was supposed to be the seventh daughter of a seventh daughter or something. She actually lived next door to the other pub in the village, but she did used to come into our pub sometimes. But people used to come from far and wide for her readings. Yeah, quite a character.
Now, I know that the pub that your family ran, the Brandon Hotel, wasn't it, which isn't there anymore, unfortunately.
No, it's...
But how significant do you think the Brandon Hotel pub was to the village?
Yeah, it's all very sad, really, because there were two shops, post office. Mrs. Martin ran the post office, and two pubs, and it's all gradually gone. There's nothing there now at all, really. A bus service, which must make it very difficult for people living there. I mean, when I was growing up, we could get a bus to go to the pictures in Bridport on a Saturday. Well, that was going back again, but in 1953, they did the Bridport pageant, which was the granting of the charter to Bridport. Princess Margaret came to that. And I can remember her passing through Beminster. We all stood outside the grammar school and waved as she went by. And then on the last evening, the Saturday evening, some of us girls from the village took part in the pageant. We were in a crowd scene. And then when it had finished, there was a candlelight procession all around Bridport, which was good fun.
And I know you've got the pageant brochure in front of you from that time.
Yeah. Well, the front page says, Bridport Borough Royal Charter Pageant to commemorate the 700th anniversary of the granting of the first Royal Charter to the Borough of Bridport, 1253 to 1953. And it's full of adverts of companies that were in Bridport then. There was the wine shop, Brayley's, Beach and Company, Reynolds were another drapers and outfitters, Roberts the bakery, Hussey's the baker, another bakery, Ward's, that was children's clothes. It's just full of things that were in the town then. Northover and Gilbert's, and Glide's the butchers, and there were pictures of those that were dignitaries that were there. The Right Honourable Lord Digby, Lord Lieutenant of Dorset, picture of him, and Sidney Gale, Alderman Sidney Gale, and Alderman Robert Palmer. And then there's this whole list of the committees and who'd organised everything.
And when you think about Bridport today, because you live in Bridport now, what changes have you seen in Bridport over the decades?
Traffic. So much traffic now. It never stops, does it, going through Bridport? But there are still quite a lot of. A lot of them that I mentioned have now gone, but there are still quite a lot of have been thriving businesses. And there's a lot goes on in Bridport. There's a lot of sort of arty things, and there's all sorts you could get involved in.
When you think back to your childhood and then your teen years, what are your thoughts, Denny, in terms of what you got up to in reflecting back on those times? What are your thoughts about your childhood and your teen years?
Well, when I look back now, I just realise how lucky we were. We were so free, really. We used to go to sing in the church choir and things like that. During the holidays, we'd go down in one of the farmers' fields and play rounders all day long. Some of the boys used to join us, and we were just so free, really. There was no pressure like there is today on young people today. We didn't didn't have to keep up fit an image or have the right designer jeans or anything. No one really cared what you were wearing. You were just, as long as you were clean and tidy, and we all just sort of played together. And we were quite lucky. We had the reading room in the village, which had a billiards table and a table tennis table. And we could use this in the evenings. An old chap, Jimmy Pye, used to unlock the room and light a fire several evenings a week. And we could go along and learn to play snooker and billiards and table tennis. But I just don't remember there being any cost. I can't remember us having to pay anything. And on Friday nights, Felix Simmons used to come out from Bridport, set up a projector and a screen in the village hall, and we'd have a weekly film show. I think that was 2 shillings to go to that. Yeah, we were lucky.
And tell me about your love of Netherbury first. Tell me your love of the village, what it means to you.
Well, it was just that I just remember it as a happy time, and all the family were there, and I'd got lots of friends there, and it was just a lovely way of life, and it was a lovely place to grow up.
What does Dorset mean to you?
Well, I really wouldn't want to live anywhere else, I don't think. I mean, Dorset's got so much, hasn't it? I did make up a poem about Dorset. I think I can remember it. The Dorset folk, or so 'tis said, are strong in the arm but weak in the head. Well, I suppose it could be true, but there's many a thing that we can do. We can plough a straight furrow, sow a good seed, grow dirt big marrows, turnips and swede. Back in the past, so I've heard tell, they made blue vinny cheese ever so well. Cider and apple cakes, Dorset knobs too, are but a few of the things we can do. Some folk make buttons, some feather stitch. We make a good living, though we'll never be rich. We've had our share of famous folk. King Charles was here once, he hid in an oak. We have many landmarks, some famous, some crude, like the Cernabas giant, all in the nude. In summer they come from far and from wide to look at our beautiful countryside. So slow we might be down here in the west, but we'll stay where we are, 'cause Dorset is best.
Oh, Denny, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. When did you write that and why?
Why did I write it? Oh, it was for when I was in Netherbury. I was in the WI, and we had a competition, and one was to make up a poem about Dorset. That was what I came up with.
So I know for you, the pandemic and COVID, you mentioned to me it's been liberating for you, but I also know that you do have concerns of where you live at the moment, and obviously being very wary of people that are vulnerable.
Yeah, that is my worry, really. When we first went into lockdown, as I did find it quite liberating, because there was no pressure to be anywhere or to do anything. But as it's gone on, of course, we've begun to go out a little bit. But I am very wary. I would hate to be... I live in a block of flats, which is, a lot of elderly people. And I just wouldn't like to be the person that brought it here.
Have you had any low moments over the last few months?
Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I think, oh gosh, how much longer is this going on? But obviously it's at the back of your mind all the time, isn't it? And I'm a bit wary of getting too close to my granddaughters now, because, the young people. So I'm very mindful of, it's a shame, you can't give them a hug or anything. We've just got to be sensible and hopefully get through it.
Can I ask you why you think it's important to record memories and to preserve memories?
To be honest, doing this with you, it's made me think I'm must write up my life story for my children. I mean, as a mum saved all our, I've got my ration book, and I've got these 3 letters from my father, and all sorts of bits and pieces. And actually, my mum used to be a great diary writer, and in there's a little book, and it's got all sorts of little sayings and things people used to come in the bar and say. And in fact, actually, just recently, I was looking in there, and there was a little piece of paper in there with a poem written on it, and it was a poem about Burma, and it was one that had been written by an old chap that lived in Netherbury. Jack Gay, his name was, and he'd served in Burma during the war. And apparently, on the bottom it said he'd sent a copy to the Bridport News, and Mum had kept his little handwritten copy. So I've recently copied that, and I found out where his daughter lived, and I've sent the original to her, because I thought, when I pop my clogs, the children are going to say, well, it's a bit of rubbish, and, throw it away. But I thought it was important. She probably had never seen it anyway. And so I sent that on to her, which was quite nice. She wrote back and said, well, she would keep it.
And what's it been like for you to be interviewed today?
It's been quite nice to do, actually. It's sort of reminding me of things that, it's made me search my memory for things that we did. And, I hope I've been of some help to you anyway.